It's the Paris Chong
Let me
Show.
ask you this, since you brought it up about AI. What I mean, I have mixed feelings about
Yeah,
it. So
don't we all,
I
right?
d- what, how is that? How do you feel about creating that content? And you're a father, right? And so you
Yep,
have kids,
yeah.
and I don't. There's something about AI that makes me think everyone's going to be really stupid soon.
It's interesting, I think, so one, I was born in the '80s, right?
Yeah, the
I've
best
always
era.
yeah, I loved
I danced in the 80s.
oh, man, I was always jealous of my parents. I'm like, "You guys were, like,
Oh,
adults in the '80s, how
it was
lucky
the
you," right?
best.
I've always loved science fiction, I've always been hooked to I've always loved the idea of AI, right? And
Mhm.
but now we're here, and it's a very scary thing. And I say that in the sense of the reverence for the technology, the power of the technology, not to dissuade anyone, but in the sense that when you have, technology that's as powerful as what AI is now and as quickly as it's getting
Mhm.
better, um, you have to have a certain amount of reverence for that.
Mhm.
And you need to have a certain amount of like responsibility
Mhm.
that you take in when dealing with it and when you're developing it. And so for me, I've been working in the AI space since 2020 with Google, and we've developed some really incredible things. One of the first projects I worked on there was our real tone project, and this project was aimed at one, calling out that there was an industry wide sort of fairness issue when it came to photographing people of color. Not just
Oh,
photographing,
wow.
right? Even with movies or anything that was based off of the color profiles of film were not really tuned for darker skin tones, right? So the darker you got, and it didn't mean you were my color. You could
Yeah.
be many shades above and many shades below, and it still wasn't meant to sort of capture you well. And so that again, that lack of fairness uh, pushed into how things were tuned even when the digital world came in. And so this project that we worked on was
Wow,
we
that's
brought a lot of
interesting.
experts in who were in the world of filmmaking, photographers, color grading, as many people as we could get in,
Mhm.
and we talked to them. We had them go out and create work. Kind of just dissected their process and how they were able to get really exceptional works through their process, and just asked them like, how do we make things better? And we took that and we created some things that were able to make the images. I specifically work on the Pixel
Okay.
phone, so the camera on the Pixel, and I work with our Photos app, which is part of our. You can hold your images in Photos, but it's also about the editing suite that we have in Photos. And the main goal was how do we make sure that we can provide really high quality, fair images across the board so everyone can be proud of and feel represented when
Yeah.
they're photographed on these devices. And it was a huge success. And for me, I got hooked to that feeling of like, okay, technology can be used
Right.
to impact real world systemic problems. And you may feel like, oh, like, well, this is frivolous. Who cares if the camera captures you a little bit darker than you are, if they can't see this, they can't see that. But I mean, these things as kids impact the way we feel about ourselves,
Yeah.
and it goes into adulthood, right? Like everyone deserves to be seen.
Yeah, how
And
they
so
want to be seen.
100%. So I love that. And
Okay.
since then, we worked on I've been able to work on other projects while at Google, and I love that aspect of it. I think I've been a big advocate while I've been there of us ensuring that we are designing tools for
Mhm.
people to use and we're not designing replacements for people.
Yeah. What you're describing it in a different way that I've thought about when you're talking about color correction and imagery. I'm always thinking about like nobody's going to know how to spell anymore
Yeah,
or
yeah.
how to actually create a sentence or a paragraph because it's amazing how it can just make everything sound so much better. I mean, I've only used it once in my life,
Yeah.
but for an invitation, but I'm like, wow, that sounds really good. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to use it, but I don't want to get into the habit of using it for everything. And I don't it's just I was thinking of it from that point of view, but it's nice to hear what you're talking about as far as it's relating to photography. So that
Yeah, I
does make
mean,
sense.
there's so many ways in which AI is going to allow us to look at things that
Hmm.
we either wouldn't have the manpower or time to do or to do as
Yeah.
quickly. There's some real benefits, especially in the world of medicine and in the health world, and in our world where it comes to photography and imaging and storytelling. But again, we have to be careful, and we
Yeah.
should be cautious. And uh, I would like to think this is being
Yeah.
super optimistic, but I would like to think that as a species, we can look at humanity as like we need to be connected to certain things.
Right.
And so I don't know. Um, I also grew up in the time where like I'm going to the Terminator movies, right, and then
Yeah.
looking at what AI did there. But it's a very interesting time to be working in technology, specifically that kind of technology. But I'm very grateful for my time there. I've learned a
Yeah.
ton with being at Google, and have been able to contribute to some of these projects. I have a great deal of pride in that, and also it's my job there is so very technical
Mhm.
that it doesn't sort of break me away from or exhaust the space of me as an artist, which is
Right.
like a really big thing. That was the one reason why I thought about not taking that job years ago, was I'd already worked a job. So years ago when I lived here in LA,
Mhm.
right out of college, I was working at a design firm, and I was doing graphic design at the time. And in
Mhm.
fact, I was creating these pieces as an artist using Photoshop and a couple,
Right.
illustrating a couple different things to make my art. And I would go to work and I would be completely drained from
Right.
making these flyers and
Mhm.
branding and things like that for these companies that I had never, weren't even in the state of California, because we did work all over the US. And I realized it was hard to sort of have your day job stretch into your artistic life.
Yeah. It kinda dampers it, right?
It does. And even if you're not creating things that are like extremely creative and avant-garde art, it's still coming from the same place. And
Yeah.
so I would just feel very depleted. And so was afraid that that might happen with this job. And it didn't. This, like I said, this job was a little, it was more technical than that. And I've always been into computers.
Mhm.
My dad got into the IT world, in the mid '90s, and got me. I was working on and messing around with computers like in the fifth grade, and gaming
Wow.
and all that. So
Yeah.
I've always had that part of my personality as well. I've always loved technology. I've always loved
It's the
computers.
Paris Strong Show.